Welcome everybody to seminar number 3. We'll go straight into it. There was an activity in the seminar, so you can ignore these first parts, but it'll be worthwhile setting your intentions. My intentions for today are to focus on obstacles and to encourage you to not ignore your obstacles and not to avoid your obstacles. It would be here what Marcus is telling us to do is that our actions may be impeded, but there can be no impeding our intentions or our disposition, our character, because our actions can accommodate and adapt. The impediment to action becomes the action. What stands in the way becomes the way. The obstacle is your next step. This is where we need to be focusing. We're going to be looking at the types of obstacles that you all let me know you're experiencing, and then we also know students typically experience around this time. Here's my agenda for today, so let's jump right into it. Administratively, we've got a withdrawal date just passed. Again, it's all online. The last date for withdrawals is November 30th. We've got another seminar and a seminar number 4 coming up. It'll be the last one for the fall on those 2 days, Wednesday, Thursday. Wednesdays is always 6 till 7 p.m. Thursdays always 4 till 5 p.m. And reading week will be happening in November, but we'll remind you again too. But getting yourself ready for that. We have to talk about fees a little bit here. Some of you have been misunderstanding, and there's a lot of outstanding fees. So either we miscommunicated it or you have misunderstood it. That there was a $75 application fee, and that got you into Open Studies. And then Fresh Start has $500 fee, and that $500 fee, if you were overseas, you did that, you spoke with me via Skype to do your intake session, and then we sent you a link for a $500 fee, or you did it in person. If you were here in Edmonton, then you came into a group session, but you put a $50 deposit down. And some people that have been doing that method have ignored or missed page number 7 of their guidelines, which told them 3 different methods to come up with the other 450. Some people think that it comes out of their student loans automatically. Some people think it comes out of their tuition automatically. Neither of those are correct. It's a separate payment. It's not associated to tuition, and it's not associated to your application. It's the Fresh Start program fee that needs to be paid to the Academic Success Centre. You can do that by calling the telephone number 780-492-2682. 492-2682, or you can come in person to 1-AD sub and pay in person there. The link on the website should also be working to submit that. It won't take Visa debit, it will only take credit card. Okay, with that being said, marking. I am a little bit behind, so if you're seeing that there is that your things haven't been marked yet, just be patient. That I'm on it, and we'll get through it. We'll get through it all. Two of the most recent assessments were uploaded. So you had to upload a document, and in Moodle in eClass, it's a 2-step process to submit an assignment. So they allow for a draft stage and then an actual submit stage before the deadline. So many of you, if you go into your grade, you're sending me worried emails, panicking a little bit, saying, hey, look, mine says that I'm overdue. You're not overdue, you just didn't submit it. That's okay, because when you uploaded it, I can still see in the draft stage what date and time you uploaded it, which is before the deadline. So it's no problem. I will keep marking all of those ones at the draft stage if I see that the date is before the deadline. So marking is getting done. Uploading, if you see any overdue in your 2 uploading assignments, don't have any cause for concern. You know the date is there, I can see it, I will still mark it. Appointments can be organized very quickly with me on a calendar here. Go into Cognitive Strategies, you'll see my lovely face, and there's a little red link there. Click on that and you'll be able to make an appointment with me, no problem. If you want to check your grades, you should be able to log into Fresh Start Cognitive Strategies, and on the main homepage, right by the left, go to the left-hand side, you'll see this grades section. Click on grades, and you'll get to have a look at this. Now, I just want to have a look. I've just got 2 people up here. I just want to compare and contrast, but I also just want to let you see what this pass means. Some people are still getting a little bit confused about pass and fail. If you get 80 or you get 100, you get a pass. And pass or fail means you get all the points or none of the points. points. If you passed, then you come over to here and you check out course overview. That student passed, so they got 4. Tap into university quiz, they got a pass, so they get all 6. So they just keep this score down here. You don't get a portion of it, you get all the marks. It's pass or fail, all or nothing. Okay, all or nothing. If you log into your grades page and you see this here, you see a bunch of dashes for some of the quizzes that the deadline's already passed. These are zeros, so these are also fails, but they're not automatically populated because you never did them. Not you personally. The student never did them. So if they got a fail, that's also a 0. So these are all zeros. This one here, they got the points for time management, which I think is a 6. We come down and they got 2. So if we calculate this here, I did it earlier, it's over 20% that they've missed or failed. And so they can't actually pass the online course. So if yours looks like this, please give me, send me an email or go back to my calendar. Make an appointment immediately to see how we can get you back on track. But most likely, you're going to have to repeat this course. That's all there is about grading. This here is a graph of time and all activity in Fresh Start. You can see that in the online course. The measurement here is a view or a post. Post is orange, but the view is the one we're looking at. So every time a student looks at a page, views one page, then that's considered one activity, one measure here. So we can see that these massive peaks or spikes in activity. And if you could take a guess at what these are, most of you are pretty good at guessing that this is a deadline. That's correct. These are Sundays. These are all Sundays, these peaks. And we spoke in the first seminar about having a less stressful experience this year. And this looks to me to be quite stressful. And it's still a sign of cramming and procrastination, putting things off. Yes, this isn't as important as your other things. I know that you're busy. I know that you've got a lot of things going on, and this is going to be on that list of things to do. Fresh Start is a little bit easier than your other courses, and it's not going to be considered as important as the other ones. However, you do have to complete it, and trying to wait till Sunday to attempt anything or to finish these off, let alone just start, it's going to be really hard to pass some of these things. So I don't want you to put yourself in jeopardy of not passing it by missing 3 or 4 quizzes. Might do it. So we don't want to do that. So please shift your Fresh Start time when you do things. Try and do it during the week. 1 hour on a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or 2 hours on a Tuesday and a Thursday. I don't know. Whatever works for you. Whatever works for you, try to get it completed. Don't do it on a Friday and a Saturday. Take that time for yourself in the evenings. But Monday to Thursday, try to figure out how to get most of it done so that you're not having to do it here. Thanks. We just want to have a look. Today we're going to talk about obstacles, and to understand how obstacles work and why they're popping up, we need to remember our context. First context is our environment. You are experiencing a squeeze and you're experiencing pressure because of deadlines, uncertain future, relationships of who you are as a person and all the roles you play in life, but also because of the academic environment itself. You are here, we've already seen that there's a steep decline in motivational energy levels as we head towards December. The weather is getting colder, relationships are forming, they're breaking apart. There's work, there's complicated material that you have to learn in a short period of time. So this is stressful. There's major deadlines as well, and there's other assessments. So you are in a high performance, high stakes situation. And so that pressure is building, not just your academically, but in all areas of your life. So we have to remind ourselves that we're experiencing some of these obstacles because we're stressed a lot of the time. We're in a very stressful environment. So keeping that in mind, we also have to remember that we are a human being. We have a brain, and a lot of our obstacles are unfortunately systemic. They're because of the system that we're in. They're a part of the system. They are flaws or functions of the system that don't allow us. So we have to see, how does our brain work to help us come up with the strategies to deal with these specific obstacles. Whether it is you've got procrastination, or you're experiencing procrastination, or you're experiencing some boredom, how do we deal with these and take full responsibility? What can I do to get a handle on these two things. So let's have a quick look. There's a couple of videos in here. We're not going to watch the videos, but I've left links in here for everyone to be able to watch them. But Dr. Evian Gordon comes up with this great model, Brain 124, and so I've just summarized it here for us. Rule number 1, part of the 124. One rule: minimize danger, maximize rewards. This does not describe procrastination. Minimize any pain or discomfort and maximize all rewards, all pleasure. Difficult, boring assignment, textbook reading, journal article, you get the point. Go and watch Netflix. How could they compete? There's no chance they could compete. So procrastination is a universal phenomenon. We're going to be experiencing it. Maybe this is one explanation why. Let's go back to the rest of them. 2 modes of operation: consciousness and non-consciousness. So we're either aware or we're unaware of what's going on. And there's a lot that, if it's considered habitual, there's a lot of behaviors, thoughts, feelings, and emotions that we can see on here that are completely unaware to us, operating non-consciously. There's a few things that we are consciously aware of as well. Now the difference is what we pay attention to. Once we bring it to consciousness, that means we've brought it into my realm of attention. Typically my short-term working memory, I'm now paying attention to it, and I'm able to start thinking about it and noticing it and being aware of what's going on. Then he says that we've got 4 processes that are always working, and they are linked, but they are sequential. We have emotions, feelings, thinking, and self-regulation. Emotions and feelings, most people consider them to be the same thing, but in our model, we have to separate them, and the way that they're separated is via consciousness. Emotions are raw emotions and not conscious to us. They are just response to our physiology and the chemical biology that's happening inside of us to our environment. Whatever's going on there with all that data is being interpreted, and it's all happening inside of us. And then as soon as we bring awareness to this, to our physiology, those sensations, that's when we start labeling it, and it's a feeling. So then we start thinking and feeling, and they're going to interact together. And then the overall overriding process that's going to lead to our choices and our behavior is self-regulation. Our interpretation of those feelings and thinking, feeling and thinking, interpreting our emotions, is then us managing those 2 components to then act, to take action. So how do we control our emotion, our feelings, and our thoughts to act in the best interest of our selves? That's quite a lot. I have another video here too, but I'm not going to incorporate it into this one. I'd highly recommend that you watch both of his, but he goes on to summarize exactly the same information that Evan Gordon has done, and he tells us that if you want to have high performance, you have to look at your behaviors. But looking at your behaviors is not enough, because we all know what we should be doing. We just can't bring ourselves to do it. So he says that there's external, that there's outside of us. So we have to look inside of ourselves. And when we start looking inside of ourselves, we look at the thinking and the feeling part. Thinking, if we start thinking about it, and if we start having better beliefs or different beliefs, that's going to indicate the behavior or influence the behavior we choose, which we've always seen in an online course, cognitive strategies. We've already seen that the beliefs we have about learning, in particular, influence the behaviors we take. If you don't believe me, if you think that I'm an idiot, then you think your teacher's an idiot, you think that whoever's giving you advice or giving you the teaching is an idiot, that's going to influence your behaviors. So your beliefs about some things are really important. But also, even more important than that, he says, are the feelings that we're having about it. If someone tells you you're feeling anxious before an exam, and someone tells you, oh, don't worry about it. So now you're telling me to think about not worrying, or not worrying about my anxiety, or not worrying about the result. Oh, I never thought to not worry. So these are the feelings that we're having, and then thinking about a feeling or trying to tell ourselves to not worry doesn't work. We've all had this experience. Then he says, even more fundamental to the feeling, which is right in line with Evan Gordon's model to Brain 124, is emotions. Emotions are right underneath them, and that's that conscious awareness, that unconscious version of our feelings. Then he says, even more fundamental to emotions and this cascade of events, where do our emotions come from? He says that comes from the biochemistry interacting with our environment. So we have a look at physiology. He says our entire physiology. If you had a cupcake and that cupcake's in your belly, there is a lot of information, a lot of signals being sent to your brain. And however we interpret those, some of you will be interpreting that cupcake from as a snack, and you'd be like, oh wow, I haven't had a cupcake in a while, that was delicious, that's so good. Other people might be interpreting as guilty, like, oh, I've been trying to lose weight and I fell victim to that cupcake again, I shouldn't have had that snack, damn it. All of these signals will be happening, but then once we start noticing those sensations in the body, those emotions that have been happening, we start, as soon as we bring conscious awareness to them, that's when our thoughts and feelings kick in, and people will have a completely different experience and perspective on the exact same phenomena. So we have to know that this physiology, emotions, feelings, thinking, all internal. These are all need to be self-regulated. We have to try and figure out a way to have control over this if we want to influence behavior, because behavior will dictate our performance. So let's move on from there. This is the model we're going on. We've got to be able to self-regulate everything. So we've talked a little bit about self-regulation. You've heard some words like control and self-management, and I think I'll stick with those two. Metacognition. I really got to get clear on both of these words. Now, if we go over to, I don't think that link is working. I had a multiple choice term, so I want you to answer this question. What is the definition of metacognition? Answer it before I say. Great. Having the awareness of your thoughts and the learning process. So metacognition in an academic sense, but we can see that metacognition, that awareness of the process of what's going on, not the content, what's going on with the content. So we have to be asking these bigger picture questions. A great way to look at that is before any academic task is before, during, and after, and in these categories. If you're having trouble or you're not feeling like that you're doing the work right, or that you're feeling like you're procrastinating or you're bored, it could be worthwhile to quickly turn on your metacognition and saying, okay, let me step back for a second, pause, and have a look. Is it my motivation, the obstacle that I'm experiencing right now? Is it maybe my method? Maybe I need to change my method. Is it my use of my time? Have I got a lot of worries about the past, or am I really concerned for the future? Is it my physical environment? Maybe something needs to change there. Or is it my social environment? Or is it me actually monitoring my performance? What have I actually learned so far? Or we can look at before the task, during the task, and after the task. This here fits nicely as we're monitoring our performance and monitoring the entire process with self-regulation. Looking at self-regulation, I want you to consider a definition on your own. I'm going to push pause yourself and consider a definition. Someone who has good emotional self-regulation has the ability to keep their emotions in check. They can resist impulsive behaviors that might worsen their situation, and they can cheer themselves up when they're feeling down. They have a flexible range of emotional and behavioral responses that are well matched to the demands of their environment. This here is what we're talking about. Some key words. I wanted you to say some key words to yourself as you're looking through this. What stands out for you? In the seminar, the first keyword that always popped up was flexible. The next keyword that people said was resist. Being able to resist impulsive behaviors. I think even more important that we need to notice is behaviors that might worsen the situation. We have to, a lot of things are self-regulated. One of the most common examples when this is taught in psychology class is that a thermometer is a self-regulating machine in this case. It's a system that has, not a thermometer itself, sorry, the temperature gauge in the home. If you're trying to heat the home, then there is a system for managing it, and it will regulate itself. It's set at a certain level. I want to heat this room to 22 degrees. So if it has sensors and it's out there and is waiting, and it's just sitting there waiting. If the temperature cools down, then it will immediately have a sensor that will kick in, and it will start heating it up until it's at 22 again. So then I'm going to, and then it will turn itself off. So there's this nice little loop of feedback as we come through. There will be some stimulus, the room gets cold, so it's not thinking or feeling, this is the human version, but it will kick in its responses, and then it will have an outcome, and then it will feed that back into it, and it will just wait in this loop. For me, in my example that I gave students for this one, was me on the bus. Me on the bus and people not moving back. I get a little frustrated when people don't move back and we're all crowded at the front, we're all jammed up, and there's a person standing by the back door and they're not going up into the upper level. So the stimulus is me seeing the person on the bus not moving back. I start thinking, why is this person not doing it? It's so annoying, they're being rude to everybody. I start feeling frustrated and stressed. I can feel this in my back and shoulders and in my chest and even in my gut. My thinking once I'm thinking, okay, Tristan, take it easy. You don't have to yell out. I could be getting, if I'm having a stressful day, maybe I do yell and I get frustrated or I raise my voice. But I've got to manage that. My coping responses will be to relax and revert back to previous experiences that I've had, and I can either ask the person, if they can't hear me because they've got earbuds in, then I'm able just to excuse myself and ask people just to move out the way as I walk to the back. And I can lead the way and demonstrate what could be happening. If that person doesn't want to get out of the way, I can quickly ask myself to move through. So my outcome comes there. I can evaluate that response. I don't even probably consciously evaluate it, but I've known from personal experience, and that's feeding back into the system. If we're trying to self-regulate, we have to have all four of these components. If we're not, then no growth can really occur. We'll just stay stuck. Planning has to be a part of it. This metacognition of thinking ahead, asking these questions about what's the best way to do this, when can I do it, where can I do it, and I guess that's the how. So what do I have to do, when am I going to do it, where am I going to do it, and how am I going to do it? Asking those basic questions, then acting on that plan, and then monitoring that performance, start evaluating in the reflection, and that will feed back the whole system. If we don't reflect, then there may not be any feedback. If we don't monitor performance, then we just get stuck doing the same thing over and over again, and we might find that we start feeling very frustrated because nothing's changing. We're getting the same results. We want to incorporate all pieces, all components of this. Now, this is a system of control. We're having to use control at some points throughout this. Absolutely. If we can get control of this, then growth will come through so quickly. Let's have a look at a couple of examples. A cashier who stays polite and calm when an angry customer is berating them for something he has no control over. We've probably seen this happen. Maybe you've been in the service industry where something has happened to you and you've had to just stay there and bite your tongue and hold all of your emotions in, whether you're upset or angry too. A child who refrained from throwing a tantrum when he is told he cannot have a toy he so desperately wants. I have a lot of personal experience with this, and I've been able to watch my son go from 19 months old when he's sitting at the dinner table and he starts crying and wailing. I'm saying, buddy, what's wrong? What's wrong? He said, spoon. He's dropped a spoon, but his emotional response and his behavioral response is way out of whack for dropping your spoon. Now I can say we calm him down. He has zero self-regulation because he's so young. He's got to have it taught into him. So we've been able to rub his back, get the thing for him, solve his problems, and help him do that, and help him calm him down. You can see that the calming down by rubbing his back is actually a sensation, so we actually help change his physiology too. And we use words, we use the thinking apparatus to help him help himself eventually by modeling that self-regulation. 6 months later, now he drops his spoon. He's like, uh-oh, how did he? It's very simple. It's not the same response. He's already learned that this isn't that big a deal, and I've got a better response. So the system has been feeding back into himself after many attempts of having to show him not to lose his temper when he's dropped a spoon or dropped a piece of food on the ground. So he's been able to learn and self-regulate. a couple who are in a heated argument about something that is important to both of them and deciding to take some time to cool off before continuing their discussion instead of devolving into yelling, insults, and name calling. I imagine most of us have had, if not all of us, have had that fight with a loved one, whether it's a family member or a romantic relationship, where we've said things that we have really regretted. And we've gone to insulting them and bringing up past histories that don't bear on this conversation about this particular argument. And we're just bringing up all this old history, all the things that they've ever done wrong, just throwing it at them. And we've always probably come back and just like, holy heck, a day later, 1 hour later, like, man, I can't believe I said that. And that shows if we're able to keep cool, we're self-regulating, we're acting appropriately. If we've gone too far, we've looked back, and that's feeding back, and we're reflecting, we're able to feed back into the system, like, man, I don't want to be able to do that. I need to handle myself a little bit better, a little bit calmer in that situation to have a better result. The academic version is a student who is tempted to join her friends for a fun night out, but decides to stay and study. A woman trying to lose weight meets a friend at a restaurant and sticks with the healthy option menu instead of ordering one of her favorite high-calorie dishes. These are all examples of self-regulation, taking control, and I think there's one thing that we don't say enough is that we're acting in the best interest of the organism. This is one of the definitions. So the organism in this case is you. Are you acting in the best interest of yourself? So we can always ask this as a metacognition question. Can I delay that gratification? I know that I really need to get this assignment done, but I really want to watch How I Met Your Mother and eat some ice cream. Rule number 1 in our model of 1, 2, 4 says minimize threat and danger, stress and pain, maximize pleasure. That's a very, very difficult decision, and this is why procrastination typically wins out, especially when we're in a high stress environment. You guys are already at a stress level that's a little bit higher than most people. Even at the end of a workday, when you're working and you're getting to the end of the day, it's very easy to do that too and not act upon your goals because you're exhausted. You need to relax. That kind of idea. So it's very easy to seek pleasure and avoid pain. Let's have a look at the obstacles. I've got a couple of strategies here that are overarching, and then I want to have a look at the specific ones too. I'll see if this pops up. I do want to have a quick look at it. Oh no, it's not going to work. There was a survey that I sent out, 240 of you, and 109 of you responded. And I was able to find it. Here are the responses. And you'll see that in a second why I started with this. I started off with what's going really well, and then I asked you about your obstacles. And we can see in here that 49.5% of you said bad habits, which I put down to as meaning really lumping in everything that you procrastinated with. Then we had bored or lost during studying, bored or lost during a lecture. So I highlighted bored. Then we had difficulty getting started. And then we had loneliness was up there, but this one here took over too. So we can see that there's many obstacles. And just as a note, I am more than happy to talk about any of these obstacles. There's not many resources on campus, but the Academic Success Center is a great place to start addressing any of these obstacles. So just keep that in mind. I'm only going to speak to a few of them. So let's go back to the presentation. So the first one is, well, this is my order, but I actually changed it. I'm going to start with mental contrasting, because that's what I did in the obstacles survey. Gabrielle Altogen is a Dutch psychologist, and she came across this phenomenon of mental contrasting, and she wanted to compete with the idea of positive thinking. Just positive thinking. Yeah, I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it, I can do it, I can do it, I can do it. Because positive thinking, what she found is that she took two groups. It was a snacking study, and it was a bunch of women that wanted to lose weight, and she broke them into two groups. Two groups that had a positive fantasy, positive goals. They all had goals, but they had positive thoughts about being able to do this. That was their main strategy. The strategy of the second group was having negative thoughts about the outcome, thinking that there was going to be some obstacles in their way. So having done that, at the end, she was able to come back after 1 year, and the second group, the group that was aware of and thought of the obstacles, did more. And her conclusion is that positive thinking in the mind, in the imagination, we actually is now going to be more like a fantasy. Is that we see the end goal, I've lost the weight, I'm feeling great, I can do this, and I'm doing all these things. But our imagination doesn't know the difference between actually having achieved that goal and what we're experiencing. And so it releases a relaxation response, which leads to less energy and more chance of being unconscious about those obstacles and making mistakes along the way. It doesn't allow us to be consistent. So positive thinking isn't enough, is the argument. The fantasy is important because it tells me what I really want, which we need to know, and it tells me some strategies of how to get there. So those are really important. So they do need that positive thinking. We do need to have goals. But what works better is if we can contrast that with the obstacles along the way, saying, I know there's going to be a struggle. And once she found it wasn't even internal, it wasn't external struggles, it wasn't the donut itself, it was the thoughts and the feelings. So going back to Alan Watkins in our brain model, that it was not the behavior, it wasn't avoiding the snack, it was the thoughts and feelings and emotions that came around about being triggered by that snack. So the physiology starts up as soon as I see that donut or I see that snack, then it starts up. Coming from the environment, I get my physiological change where there's all the internal systems or it's actual things that I can see happening. Then it goes into the raw emotions, and then I get consciously aware of those raw emotions and I'm interpreting them from my perspective, my history, and then I'm into thoughts and feelings. That will then dictate my behavior. And if they know what those obstacles will be, they're able to act differently. So that's by her explanation, we're having a different result. Her husband is Peter Gollwitzer, and he is also a psychology professor. And he had a study as well, and he wanted to look at what makes people follow through on their goals. And so his question is looking at what he found was planning. He took a control group that did whatever they wanted to do, and then he took a group of his class and he forced them to write down what they will do, when they will do it, and where they will do it. And over a period of multiple months, they were able to see that 40% more likely to actually engage in that behavior. 40% more likely, just by writing it down. So if you're worried about procrastinating about that assignment, go back to your calendar or your weekly calendar or your journal that you've got and see, did you write down, I'm going to do math assignment, questions 1 through 5 in Cameron Library at 2 p.m. Right? That there could be a way to give you a 40% bigger boost in actually doing that particular thing. It's called an implementation intention. You're planning to engage in a behavior later on. So you've already planted the seed, is their argument, that you've got that started. So once it comes time, you can do that. Now, what they encourage us to do is combine both of them. Use mental contrasting and use these implementation not just on the behaviors you want to do, but on the obstacle themselves. And they've called this WHOOP. Let's have a look. Over. You need to know your wish. Let me zoom in here. You need to know your wish. What is your most important wish or concern? Make sure that it's challenging and feasible. What is the outcome? What is the main benefit you'll get from achieving this? What is your what is your main inner obstacle? What is the obstacle within you that will be holding you back from fulfilling your wishes? It may be an emotion, it may be an irrational belief, it may even be a bad habit. What really is the problem. Now the plan becomes very simple. The plan is to be prepared for these obstacles. That's what mental contrasting asks us to do. So what can you do to overcome these obstacles? And so they actually give us a little template to use for our plan. So what is your plan for your obstacles? If bad habit, then I will act or think this way. Having thoughts and having an action ready to go make it very easy to, if we practice it, go into our self-regulation loop of planning, monitoring, reflecting, and then feeding back into the system. And this will create a beneficial habit for us, that these bad habits may disappear, that our irrational beliefs may simmer down, our emotions will start to simmer down. Me getting on the bus, having that plan in mind, of just instead of getting, as soon as I sense those feelings of frustration and annoyance with no one moving back, I just now automatically go, excuse me, I'm going to jump off the back there. Or, hey buddy, can you move back? There is no the emotional response is nowhere near as large. I'll still have some sort of response, but it will slowly diminish. This is the goal. Get this one off. Scales is another great one to think about, because it gives us a way to visualize our actual regulation of an emotion or behavior. If I'm a 10 out of 10 for anger, that tells me, okay, what can I don't want to be a 10 out of 10 for anger, or do I? If I do in that situation, then I can act upon it. But if I can pause for a second and say, you know what, 10 out of 10 is a bit much for this situation, I'm going to back it off down to a 6 or a 7. How can I do that? That implies and encourages me to find a strategy to do that. If I'm at a 4 out of 10 for motivation or confidence, okay, what can I do? How can I become a 7? How can I become a 7? Oh, well, in this instance, I could do this, this, and this. So it tells me to start thinking of solutions instead of focusing on the problem. That I don't feel like doing it. A weekly reflection is a really fun way to get into our self-regulation, and it's something so easy to do on a Friday at lunchtime. Sitting down and just going through these categories and filling out what I need to stop doing, do less of, continue doing, do more of, and start doing. And these can be very, very simple things, but it's a constant reminder of the things that are down in these two columns, are the things I really need to do less of. Now, it doesn't have to be completely cold turkey that you're stopping fully, but it's just doing a little bit less of, 5% every week, 2% some weeks, 1% other weeks, but you will not be able to recognize yourself how much growth will go through as you start to implement this reflection. You'll be able to start doing more of these 3 columns and less of these 3 columns, these 2 columns. So it's a great activity to start seeing the actual strategies in mind. Some of the obstacles that you guys specifically pointed out are really important and need to be discussed, and some of the things that we don't always think about when this comes up. So I want to plant these seeds for you to really consider. For bad habits, let's jump into bad habits here and just focus on that. We look at bad habits, one thing that we really need to assess is our sense of belonging. Our sense of belonging is really important. If you feel deep down that you don't belong here, then of course you're going to, that there's a major, major feeling, and that's very painful. And so we will do anything to avoid that feeling and addressing it. So that's rule number 1 of the body. So we will procrastinate. That's rule number 1 of the brain. Minimize pain, maximize pleasure. So we'll keep ourselves safe by not thinking about those things. So we need to address it. So that sense of belonging, some things that we can do is, number 1, adopt the growth mindset. Let me jump out of here. We can look at the growth mindset. One of the easiest ways to do the growth mindset, to use the growth mindset, is just to add on the word yet. I don't feel like I belong yet. I don't feel like I can do this yet. I'm not a math person yet. I'm not good at writing yet. My English isn't good enough yet. This here is a great way to encourage ourselves to consider that this is a learning process and that I am consistently growing over time, which you are. That's a fact. None of this is fixed. You can always improve. Some things are going to be easier. Some things are going to be really hard. but we can always grow and improve and change. And if we use this growth mindset, it makes it easier to do it. If you're having feelings of belonging, another thing that you can do is look for role models, people that have gone through what you're going through and achieving the things that you want to achieve. So being able to find mentors. If you want to help finding a role model, make an appointment. We can figure out who would be a good person to talk to. We have a small strategy where we use LinkedIn or we use other services, the career services on campus, to try and find people that can match with you. Participate. Learning to participate is quite challenging, and it's in multiple pieces of this, but learning to participate is in the realm of competency. A lot of the times these bad habits come from we're not good enough yet. We've got to remember we're still beginners. We're in the apprenticeship stage. Whether you're taking 200, 300, 400 level courses, you're still in that beginner stage. This stuff is new and it's complicated, and that you can't do it yet. So being able to work with a tutor, being able to work with a TA, sitting down with someone that can actually help you to participate and scaffold it, or asking yourself, okay, if this, specifically in math and science courses too, if this is the problem we're trying to solve, okay, what was the problem maybe 2 stages before this? What's an easier problem that builds up to this? Because we know all of our problems, especially in math, build upon each other. I've got to solve this problem. I need to know these components. So maybe I need a little bit more practice here before I can actually solve this one. Working with a tutor is a really fast way to do that. Working with your TA is a really fast way to do that as well. If it's with writing, then we can figure out how we can start participating in the writing process by looking at examples of other people's writing as well. And we can do that as well. And also reach out to someone and start talking about it. Boredom is a very common experience, and it seems to be pretty popular amongst those survey respondents. And it was bored in a lecture and bored during a study session. So there's a bunch of things on here. But remember, if we're feeling, boredom is a feeling, so that there is coming from some emotion. So if I want to start, what's the opposite of boredom? Fully engaged or excited. If we think of bored versus exciting, how can you get that excitement for yourself? If you can't control the professor, if the lecture is boring or the textbook is dry and boring, okay, then you're going to have to do something to pump yourself up. So physiology could be that you take 20 deep breaths, or you do 10 push-ups, or you do some sort of physical activity to change your physiology. That'll start changing and having a cascade on your emotions, and then you'll be able to interpret different feelings. You'll have a little bit of energy to do something. Another piece of boredom, 2 components of boredom, are values and competency. You have to value something about what's happening with the content. If you don't value this class, if it's just a required course, then you're not going to get anything out of it. And you're going to choose that there's going to lead to boredom. If you're still not competent, get some competency and you'll start enjoying the class more. This could be what's going on. Be honest with yourself. Going back to the values, I did skip one thing there. One example I had was an engineering student, and he was doing his, he chose philosophy as one of his electives. All his friends were choosing econ, and he thought that he'd be more interested in philosophy. And he got in there, and it was just complicated reading and complicated writing, and it was just, none of this is going to be helpful for him. It was just way too much effort to get through all of this hard work for him to also do the math and science courses that he needed to get done. So I asked him, okay, let's find some value in this course. So we switched it. Instead of focusing on the content, we looked at the professor's syllabus, and the professor's syllabus had 2 objectives. This course is about teaching critical reading and critical writing. So I asked him, would those 2 skills be useful for him? He said, it's hard to deny. Yes, of course they would. He would have to be able to write reports in the future, and he's going to have to be able to read reports in the future, and he wants to be able to do that critically. So we can use the topic of philosophy to learn those 2 things. We can use the topic of philosophy or the topic of anything to practice those 2 skills. So now immediately he had value. There was a purpose. There was a reason to pay attention. It wasn't as boring anymore. And then he built up his competency as well as he got better at his reading skills and his writing skills. He found the class much more enjoyable at the end. One thing when it comes to boredom too is, unfortunately, stimulus control. because of media and how many screens we have access to, we have access to a lot of stimulation coming in. So Netflix, Facebook, these are two things that your professors can't compete with. They can't. There's no way that they can be as engaging as a multi-billion-dollar program that is being written by professional screenwriters that is fully entertaining, or everything about yourself. This is your life in your Facebook stream, in your newsfeed that you just get to see. That is your friends and you doing stuff. That's just your life. There's no comparison. A professor can't do that. So being able to limit our stimulation is challenging. I can't ask you to, I don't know if I can even ask you to do that, but it's something to keep in mind about lowering your screen time. I think on mine, I know that the updated version in here that we have for screen time has definitely helped me to not look at my phone. So hopefully that there might be a shift, especially for the phones. We might just move out surfing somewhere else that's not being calculated. But keeping in mind that we are an overstimulated society, and that this here does have an issue with boredom. If you go home and you have 5 TVs in your house, or 2 TVs in your house, you have an iPad and a phone in your bedroom, you might be considering, you know what, maybe unplugging some of these and shifting away, just to decrease how much stimulus is coming in all the time, because we feel like when we're sitting there we can be bored with a professor very quickly because it's not stimulating me the way that social networks do, or the way that I can flick through apps on my phone. I can go from Snapchat to Instagram to Facebook to see all those 3 different media types and what's happening in them. Then I can go to the internet, whatever clicks in my head, I'm like, oh, you know, I'm going to go to Wikipedia and do a deep dive on this, or I can jump over to my fantasy football app and just check my lineup one more time, or maybe I need to look at my NHL lineup. For fantasy sports, this is the overstimulation that causes this jumping around, that I can't stay focused on the professor in that moment, or I can't stay focused on my reading. When we're during a lecture, during a lecture as well, but during a study session, questioning techniques, elaboration techniques, finding what's distinctive, comparing and contrasting, retrieval strategies, one-pagers, writing a 100-word summary for your week. This is one of my favorite studies to really force students to pay attention to the 3. If you're trying to do a review and you're trying to be active, you're finding it boring, look at the last 3 lectures that you've just taken, sit down and summarize them in 100 words only. Very, very difficult to do, but incredibly beneficial. There's a lot of thinking that goes on in this. It's very active. If you're bored during the lecture, one strategy that you can do is practice problems before you go, so that you can start listening for solutions. You'll find that you can't do them, or that you can do some of them. Maybe you taught yourself some parts of it, but now you want to hear another example, so then it's more reason to pay attention. You'll start ignoring, you're building a little bit of competency and a little bit of curiosity before you show up, so that once you start listening to the professor, maybe you ignore the other boring pieces, and now you're just listening. Instead of judging the performance, you're now listening for content to solve your questions that you have. Starting is a few things that we've already said, but specifically we could look at competency. Improve your competency. Typically, procrastination and putting something off is because something is difficult. And as soon as we have that difficult, uncomfortable feeling, that uncomfortable emotion, then that's going to lead into thoughts and feelings, and we're going to invoke rule number 1. Avoid pain, discomfort, seek pleasure. So I have to get comfortable with that procrastination, feeling that discomfort, or that I'm not good at it yet. And we shouldn't expect ourselves to be able to solve it. These are assignments that a professor given us. We've never seen them before. So yes, it's going to be challenging. So being able to sit with that material, sit with that discomfort, so that you can move forward and start asking your metacognitive questions. Okay, have I ever done an assignment like this before? Where could I start? Is there something that I should reach out to ask for help? Maybe I could break this down into components. Okay, what would be the first component of this? Or how is it broken down? How am I being marked on this? Whatever those questions may be. Another way to do as well is to look at how someone else does it. This has probably been the main reason that Khan Academy and YouTube are so popular, is that we can watch people do almost anything. I had to install some IKEA shelves that were invisible shelvings, and I get really nervous about putting in the wall anchor. So immediately I'm on YouTube. I watch somebody do it. I do the first one very quick, very carefully. I'm a little bit nervous about making holes in the wall. Then boom, the second one goes up so fast, no problem. After I watched someone and saw how they do it, all of that anxiety went away. It didn't go fully away, but I still took my time. I was very careful. I watched it. I watched the person. I observed them do it multiple times. Now, this works for a lot of our courses, but there's a bunch of courses that it may not work for. So we have to try and find another way to observe someone doing it. This is the main reason we go to class. We want to observe how our professors are doing it. They're considered the expert. The next best way to do that is maybe to even get together with a couple of friends, or if you're on your own and you have the funds, then you could even start hire a tutor to walk you through something, or reach out to a learning advisor. You can come to the Academic Success Center, you can give me a call and make an appointment. We'll see how we can walk through this, as we've seen almost all types of assignments. So we should have some feedback, but if not, we'll know somewhere else that could help. Breaking it down on your own, giving yourself a reward is always good at the end too. It could be a little bit distracting, I find, for myself. Having a reward, having a chocolate bar on your table saying, okay, well, I'm going to have this chocolate bar if I get through these 2 chapters, and I can have that. Whatever it may be, just aligning it with your goals. A timer is also great, having a countdown saying, okay, I'm going to do this for 15 minutes. 15 minutes and I'm good to go. Finally, loneliness is very stressful. If we're feeling lonely and we don't, it's very similar to not feeling like you belong. It's really important, but it fits in, and I'm not surprised that it's on the list, because you can see that it might fit in with these other ones as well. Feeling competent, feeling like you can't participate, feeling like you don't belong, is very similar to the themes that are going through the other obstacles as well. So we have to, one thing I want to point out is, are you actually physically alone and there's no one around you? Then that would make sense to feel lonely. Versus you're surrounded by everybody, even friends, but let alone the entire campus, but you still have this nagging feeling that you don't belong here, that you feel lonely. This is something that needs to be addressed best with a professional. We're more than happy to sit down, start talking with people. Reach out to Rajneek, come in and see me, start talking about this feeling or these emotions that you're starting to notice that you're feeling, and seeing how we can start addressing them with resources on campus to be able to get you focused again on having the best possible chance of being able to learn this material. And also remember that you're in this, all that, we said that your physiology is being impacted by your environment. Remember, your environment is a very challenging environment, and that it's causing this pressure. So we want to be able to do it. We can look at hiring a tutor to build some competency to get you participating, using the growth mindset again to start feeling like I'm feeling lonely right now, but I may not feel like I belong yet, but I can improve this. I can grow. Noticing, when do you actually feel like it? Is it all the time, or is it particular times? You might notice some environments, or there might be some environmental triggers that do this. Start talking, start sharing. And in here I have a small phrase that you could use as well. So these are your obstacles. These are some of the things that most students put down on there. But whatever your obstacle is, whether it's procrastination, whether it's a particular bad habit, whatever, if it's boredom, whatever it is, you can now go back to our mental contrasting and our reflection. I've included that reflection form as a PDF in the seminar module along with these slides. And what I want you to do is start making an implementation plan. You don't have to do the whole of wish, outcome, obstacle, and plan, but start using this strategy here to help deal with these obstacles, because we have to know that they exist. We can't have full positive thinking that it's just going to be all great rainbows and unicorns. No, we're going to have obstacles, and they're going to be internal obstacles in the thinking, feeling, and emotion department. This is where we need to focus if I want to have high performance, if I want to change any behavior. Let's start working with these. So if I have an internal obstacle, then I will take this specific action towards my particular goal. If I'm feeling bored in a lecture, then I will change my physiology. I will sit up very straight, right on the front of my chair, and start taking notes of everything that the professor is saying towards getting a B+ in this class. So it may not have made perfect sense, but hopefully you get the idea. We're going to be making these statements, and having this plan before we get to the class is going to help us deal with those obstacles much better. Okay. Thank you very much. Make sure you answer the questions below. Happy Thanksgiving.